Hi everyone, new project on the go. So the 65 Mustang has sort of come to an end for me. I've done as much as I can, gone as far as I can with it. So now Paul has to take it to the pros to get the front end set up and wheels and tyres put on, get the vinyl roof put on. So that's freed me up quite a lot, and I've been able to get the electronic fuel pump put into the Chev and a couple other little items there, and I've made a start on the coupe as well. So what we're going to do, or what I'm going to do, is I've got to change out the power steering box. It's been leaking for a long time, a lot of play in it. And I'm going to drop the starter motor out as well, because up until 2 days ago I'd never had an issue with it, and 2 days ago it caused me an issue. Car just wouldn't start. What I'd done is I put a new pan gasket on the transmission, and I had it up on ramps like this, and because it's a little high here for me to sort of get over to put the fluid in, I decided to roll the car down the ramps again and get it on flat ground. So I rolled it without starting it, and then put the fluid in and went to start the car. Nothing. So I thought it might have been the inhibitor switch or neutral lockout switch, but no, it wasn't. I ended up tapping the solenoid on the starter motor, and she cranked, but there was a slight grinding sound there when it cranked, and now the grinding sound's still there, but it sounds like the starter motor's struggling, as if the battery's almost flat, and it's getting that like sound to it. And so yeah, I think maybe the starter motor, after God knows how long, 35 years, has finally decided to give up. But I'm lucky I've got a spare. I don't know how good that one is, but I'm gonna have a look at both starter motors once I get this one out. So we're going to be doing the power steering box and the starter motor. Okay, once you're up on the ramps, make sure you chock the back wheels. You don't want this thing rolling down onto you. Okay, to get the starter motor out, you're going to want a 1/2 inch ratchet spanner and a 9/16. So the 9/16 will take the bolts out that hold the starter motor to the transmission, and the 1/2 inch will be for the nut that holds your positive lead onto the starter motor. Okay, as you can see, we've got the starter motor out, so we've got spanners on the floor, that's what we got. So we got 2 bolts here. These are the 9/16 bolts, and the 1/2 inch one is here. What you want to do as well before you drop your starter motor out is take notice of what colour wire goes to the top terminal and what colour wire goes to the bottom terminal. On mine, the top terminal is red and the bottom terminal is white. There's an extra terminal here, but there's no wire going to that one. So write that down so you don't get them mixed up when you put it back on. Put the new one in. Okay, starting on the power steering box, you want to take the split pin here out of your pitman arm, because by doing this, that will allow the steering column, provided your key's turned on, so disconnect your battery, turn your key on, and you can push your pitman arm around, which will then allow the steering column to turn and allow you to get to the 1/2 inch bolts on the rag joint. Okay, to undo that pitman arm, you want to use a 3/4 socket, but if you've got a spanner or even a shifting spanner, that'll do. Okay, I'm using a fairly large hammer to separate this pitman arm from the steering box. So we'll just shoot around here, and you'll need to give it a few decent bashes. I tend to lock in pretty tight, but as you can see, once you've got the you've got the drag link off up here, you can see I'm rotating now. I'm rotating the rag joint on the end of the steering column, so that'll give me access to my bolts. You want to leave this on your steering box, because when you put your new box in and you put your new pitman arm on, you want to make some reference marks. Take some measurements, make some reference marks, so that this pitman arm goes onto your new box in exactly the same spot as how it's set up on the car. So that will allow you now to get to all the bolts on that rag joint. This is the starter motor that came out of the car. I degreased everything, rinsed it down, dried it off, and what I did is I got a set of jumper leads, and I tested it to make sure that it was throwing out the gear, and it seems to be working fine. So I probably had a connection problem, you know, with all the power steering fluid leaking over the years and stuff. Maybe something's got in into the plug that goes onto those brass terminals and just wasn't making good contact. So I was pretty convinced that the starter motor was working as it should, so I've decided to paint it. So I'm just going to do it how it originally would have come out, with a like a cast aluminium base, black body, and then I'll spray up the top and bottom, well, the solenoid and the bottom of the actual starter motor itself in silver. So yeah, but I did test my other one whilst I was at it, and that one works good as well. Okay, I was going to use this tie rod ball joint pitman arm separator to take the drag link off the pitman arm, but trust me, don't even bother getting it out of the cupboard, because you just don't have the room to swing a hammer. If you're on a hoist, it's different, you can turn the wheels out of the way, but if you're on ramps, no good, just stick with the hammer. Okay, the next thing you want to do is grab a 3/4 socket and a 5/8, and you've got 3 bolts in here. So 2 3/4 and 1 5/8, they're holding the box in, so that's what you want to undo. Okay, the next thing you want to do is you want to get a jack, a couple of blocks of wood. You want to start jacking the engine up from the left hand side, because you need to take out the engine mount bolt. Sorry, the right hand side, depends on which side you're looking at it. So the driver's side, you want to jack that up, because you'll need that little bit of extra clearance to drop the box underneath the exhaust manifold. You just got to get that exhaust manifold out of the way, and it drops straight out. For that engine mount bolt, you're going to be needing an 11/16 spanner or socket, or combination of both. Okay, one thing that comes in very handy if you don't want to have to take out the entire power steering line is these crow's foot spanners. They're really good. So you'll find that if you use an 11/16 spanner, the actual pipe itself will get in the way. If you try to go on the other side of the pipe, the firewall gets in the way. So you need something that'll go down over the nut, and you need to be able to turn it. Now, I did try to use some flare nut spanners, but the spanner again is too long, so you need some of these crow's feet spanners. They work a treat. Okay, the next thing you want to remove once the box drops out is you want to get this this rag joint off. So you're going to be using, what have we got here? We've got a 1 inch. So 1 inch, and it should all come off like that. Something I prepared a little earlier. So that's it. You're probably going to have to chop your hoses, your return line hose, because it's going to be extremely hard to pull those off. There's not a lot of room in there to get a lot of leverage. So I've sacrificed the hose. I'll put a new piece of hose on it when it gets installed. Now, one thing you'll notice when you take the rag joint off is in the thread here there's a little mark, and then on this side there's also a little mark. Now those two marks line up with a mark here on the rag joint, so you just align it like that, and that's how it goes back together. Good morning, day 2. Not that it takes 2 days to do this job, but I wasn't rushing anything. I wanted to make sure I got all the chassis cleaned up nice, so that when I put everything back in, I'm not going to get covered in grease like it did yesterday. So this morning I've only just started, so I've just got the rag joint back on. There's actually no torque settings for this nut that I can find. I've got a full workshop manual, and there is actually no torque setting for this one, so just tighten the hell out of it. And then your pitman arm, there are settings for it straight out of the book. So 203 to 305 Newton meters, or 150 to 225 foot-pounds. Now my torque wrench for some reason doesn't go that far, so again I've just had to tighten the hell out of it. But I've got the shaft coming out past the nut, so I'll double check this. I'll try and do some more investigation online and see how much thread should come through there, because I'm not going to get a proper torque setting for it. That's about all I've done so far. So yeah, I'll just continue with this and pick up the vid a bit later on. Okay, I had a pretty good reference all along without even realising it till now, but this is the old box, and as you can see, the nut's pretty level with the shaft, where I've actually got just a fraction more coming through, so I'd say I'm at the right torque setting. But don't take my word for it. If your car falls apart based on something I've said, I'm not taking responsibility for it. So just double check. My torque wrench only goes up to 120 Newton meters, so yeah, it sort of falls way short of what I need to torque them to. Okay, the next job I'm going to do is I'm going to fill up the box with some transmission fluid, just to try and avoid getting an airlock in the system. So this came with a screw-in cap, which is great because I can fill up the box, install it with these two caps on, not lose any fluid, and then the next time I need to take these out, these are already up the top, and it's just connect them in. Okay, the way I'm going to get this transmission fluid or power steering fluid into the box is I've got a small syringe here. You pick them up from any chemist or pharmacy, and I'm just going to it's going to take a while, but there really isn't any other way to do it without making a huge mess. Okay, one thing you want to do is take the cap off the return line so that it can it'll create a vacuum and pull the fluid in without it pooling in the top of the recess there. Okay, another thing I'm doing is just giving this a bit of a turn, which, because it started to show full, but you give this a little bit of a turn and it helps helps the fluid go further down into the box. Okay, after 175 vials or syringes of transmission fluid, I'd say we're pretty much full. So that's about 440 milliliters or mils, however you want to pronounce it. She's pretty full now, so whatever air's trapped in there hopefully will bleed out when we start the car up. But I did work this back and forward a few times, making sure that as much air came out of the box as possible. I think with a slow fill as well, it wouldn't allow any air pockets in there. I think if you used a big syringe and you just tried to squirt a whole lot in, there's a possibility of trapping an air bubble somewhere in there. A big syringe would be okay, you've just got to go slow though. About 30 years ago, this power steering box was replaced, and I think it had a starter motor put in around the same time. I can't quite remember, but obviously we had the wires off because we've actually marked them, and it's been on there for 35 years, which is great. But yeah, we've marked them, so lower and upper. So yeah, nice little way to remember where your wires came from. I think that's probably just done in liquid paper or a correction pen. So I'm going to tape these two wires up now. Obviously lost their covering over the years, and yeah, get those all finished off. Okay, the steering box is back in now. Put those 3 bolts back in. You can see the thread of one of them there coming through. I've got the rag joint lined up with the steering wheel, or with the steering column I should say, so that's all good. I've put the pitman arm back into the drag link, but I haven't put the nut on yet. I just wanted to make sure that everything was going to fit okay, so what I'll do is I'll pop that drag link off so that I can move the pitman arm around to get to the bolts on this rag joint. Okay, 2 bolts in the rag joint are connected. The next step is to put the return line hose on. Okay, everything's complete now, so the pitman arm has been put back into the drag link and nut on there with a split pin. All the hoses here have been put on, clamped up. New piece of pipe in there, or a new piece of rubber hose I should say. So it's all looking neat and clean. Taped up all that wiring as I mentioned before. I couldn't quite get in here, it's a little bit difficult to get under there, so I could only run it as far as I could reach. Starter motor is perfect now, so I don't know what was going on before when I had issues. There could have been, like I mentioned, there could have been some dirt or something on the 2 wires that go to the solenoid. They could have been causing issues. I definitely know that this main cable wasn't dirty, it was nice and clean. But yeah, it's started first turn of the key, so, and the steering felt alright too, so I don't think there's any air in there, and if there is, there's not going to be a lot, because the pipes, these 2 pipes here, they remain full of fluid. They didn't leak any because of they're sort of facing up, so the only air pocket that there could be is in this rubber hose here, but that's nothing. It's only a return line anyway, so yeah, that's basically the job done now. The next job to do is the diff pinion seal, and I'm going to get that done now. Well, the power steering box on the hardtop, the coupe, is done now. Starter motor starts every time, first time, no issues with it. So I think it was dirt on those terminals, or in the plugs that go onto the terminals. So yeah, the next video we'll be doing the diff pinion seal. And yeah, have a great Christmas and a safe New Year, and I'll see you soon.